Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Welcome back to our channel. It's not unusual to see chess grandmasters giving kids the time of the day and teaching them a thing or two about chess. The same is the case with GM Hikaru Nakamura. But sometimes, the kid that you're going up against, even if you've achieved it all in chess, can be a challenge. Today we'll be taking a look at Hikaru vs kids. Number 5. Hikaru goes up against Tani Adewumi. People who are familiar with the chess lore know that Tani Adewumi is the talk of the town these days. The 12-year-old chess prodigy is regarded by many as the next big thing. It's a thing these days for the young talent to have viral videos all over the internet of him destroying players who have made a name for themselves in the chess community. However, a few years back, at the age of 8, Tani went against arguably the best, if not at least one of the best chess players around. We're talking about Hikaru Nakamura, who is currently ranked in the top 10 of all chess players around. He currently had 3 US championships under his belt and also runs a channel on Twitch. We might have seen Tani wiping the floor with many Twitch streamers in the past, but going up against someone like Hikaru was almost certainly a whole other ballgame. Number 4. The game begins. The game started off with Tani playing as white and Hikaru playing as black. Tani's first move was pawn to e4. Hikaru's response was moving his pawn to c5, incorporating the famous Sicilian defense. Even though Tani has a knack for playing aggressively, he decided to play cautiously against Hikaru, with both developing their pieces in a pretty standard manner. Tani had his knights on c3 and d4, while Hikaru had his at d6 and f6, his bishop at g7. In short, the two of them had equal control of the board. Tani analyzes the board for a few seconds, before moving his bishop out of his king's way in order to castle. Hikaru castles before Tani and immediately moves ka5, pinning Tani's bishop. Still, the two of them were on equal footing up until that point. Then, Tani moves his queen one step forward, planning on trading Hikaru's bishop at h6, trying to gain the upper hand. It was now that the tension had begun to accumulate. Number 3. Things get spicy. Hikaru, upon seeing how Tani was going on the offensive, decides to do the same, moving his pawn to b5. Tani moves his pawn to f3, backing up his pawn on e4. This move of Tani came at the cost of reducing the safety level of his king by a few notches. Hikaru, instead of taking advantage of that, decided to make a blunder, moving his pawn to e5, up for Tani to take, after trading their bishops and knights. After a bishop and knight trade on b3, Tani decides to take Hikaru's pawn on b5. After this fiery exchange had happened, Hikaru made another blunder, moving kxe4. Tani takes the knight on his own, while making space for his other pieces to advance. After Tani makes a useless move of moving his qd5, Hikaru attacks Tani's pawn with one of his rooks. Tani responds in pretty much the worst way he could. He leaves his rook up for Hikaru to take with his bishop, with Hikaru smiling gleefully. Before we continue, make sure to like the video and hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying it. Also, press the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any of our upcoming content. Now, let's get back to what we were talking about. Number 2. The game goes on. After blundering his rook, many expected Tani to straight up resign, but the young chap marched on, moving kxd6. Hikaru moves on with rc2, aiming for a checkmate at f2, which is defended by Tani with ke4. Tani was pretty much trying his best not to lose, probably looking to beat Hikaru by the clock. Hikaru doesn't give Tani a break though, attacking his queen, to which Tani responds by offering it via a queen trade. What happens next is, well, not hard to guess. Tani does his turns, just trying to survive for dear life, and Hikaru not showing any sort of mercy to the 8-year-old. But hey, it's chess we're talking about. Underestimating your opponent in any way can end up in a bad way for anyone. Like, we have seen literal grandmasters being beaten by little kids, so yeah, it made sense why Hikaru was so bent on trying to win the game, instead of taking it slow. Number 1. The game ends. The game moves on with both Hikaru and Tani exchanging pieces here and there, but Hikaru was going ham on Tani for the most part. It was pretty impressive to see Tani being able to fend off the grandmaster, coming for his head in a relatively eloquent fashion. Hikaru chases Tani's knight throughout the entire board, and before anyone can say uncle, Hikaru ends the game, checkmating Tani with his rook. Sure, Tani may have lost the battle, but he sure as heck didn't lose the war. Some years later, at the age of 12, Tani would go on to beat Hikaru not once, but twice. All in all, the young Tani is on the right track. It's quite possible that he's going to become the next world chess champion sooner than we expect. This brings us to the end of our video. Here was a look at Hikaru Nakamura versus kids.